Bueno, esto ya Natalia. Bienvenidos.
Hello, everybody. I'm so glad to be able to share the experience of the Barichara Regeneration Foundation with you. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it to Barichara this time of the year, as this is a time of the year I spent in another part of Colombia, where I also supported some. I'm supporting some regenerative processes here also. So I'm glad to be here, and I can see a few people. And I will be sharing with you a bit of the story about the Fundación Barichara Regenerativa, what we are understanding about that type of foundation, and how we have been conceptualizing the different aspects of the foundation to be able to work in the territory. As I am in a rural area now, I will cut my video to avoid shortcuts and disturbances in the communication while I am presenting. And then when we have the session for questions and answers, I will open again the video. So here I'm going. Yeah. Okay, can you hear me well?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so how we have been conceptualizing the territorial foundation. Our foundation is what in other parts of the world is understood as a community foundation that contributes to autonomous and regenerative development at a bioregional scale with a holistic approach. Mainly the community foundations are focused on community philanthropy, and we are part of a national movement of community foundations and an international movement also of community foundations. In Colombia, we named them territorial foundations due to political issues, but for you that are familiar maybe with community foundations, we are aligned with that concept. The main characteristic of these territorial foundations are that they are focused on community philanthropy. I will further explain that concept in the next slide. Our idea is to promote a network of relationships to connect regenerative processes and initiatives and promote their collaboration among them at different levels. And the idea is that we promote this connection of initiatives that in most cases are working separately. And we conceive ourselves as a living regeneration laboratory. We promote that the regenerative processes in the territory work together, dream, prototype, learn, improve, and then dream again. So we are continuously learning from the local experiences, and based on those experiences and learnings, we rebuild and we review our conceptual frameworks for actions and the regenerative processes itself. We have adopted a regenerative organizational approach, which has been a challenge, and we are still learning how this works. But we adopted some principles from Carol Sanford linked to regenerative organizations that are related with lead from the essence, not from personality, meaning by that we are committed to lead not only the territorial foundation, but also the regenerative processes in the territory based on our gifts, main gifts, our dreams from our, based on our most authentical purposes, and not from a role that we want to assume or that we want to play. So we try that our leadership is horizontal, that we promote that most of the people can participate, and we are learning how to rotate leadership. We are not yet there, but we think that it's very important leadership rotation within the territorial foundation and also among the regenerative processes. We are trying to shift from static to a dynamic life vision with rapid prototyping. So we are prototyping within the foundation, how to work with people, with the processes, how to articulate them, how to work with, work with collaborative finance, with participatory governance. So we prototype, we learn, we adapt, we then prototype a better way to do it, we learn, and we adapt again. So today I'm going to share the state of the art where we are nowadays and what we're still building or struggling to develop within the foundation, and regarding the relationship of the foundation with the stakeholders of the territory. We use regenerative frameworks, not models, meaning by that we have frameworks to work that guide our thinking and our co-creativity with the actors involved. I want to deepen a bit on the concept of community philanthropy, because this is like the spirit of the territorial foundation. And the idea of community philanthropy is that it's a collaborative approach among people or regenerative processes or collectives or groups to improve their community. This is based on the idea that all community members have resources and gifts that they can that can be leveraged to solve problems or to achieve dreams from the community. The key characteristics of community philanthropy are based on build solidarity, reciprocity, transparency, trust, and commitment among the local stakeholders. We are focused on a specific territory, and I will talk more about that later. We rely on local resources, like the money that exists in the territory, the skills, knowledge, and networks, but also on resources that can come from other regenerative finance sources. We seek to mobilize different types of capital, not only financial, from the local level and other allies worldwide. We engage people that is willing to donate their time and their money to the processes in the territory, and we are based on principles of trust-based philanthropy. What we do as a territorial foundation. One important thing to understand is that we are not implementers. We are supporting the implementers the people that implement regenerative processes in the territory. So our main mission is to support these organizations, collectives, or groups that actually implement the regenerative processes. So for them, what we do is to foster a sense of purpose and agency. We promote diverse knowledge, integrating science with local popular and spiritual wisdom in the territory. We facilitate the dialogue among and collaboration among the regenerative processes in the territory. We encourage connection, collaboration, cooperation, and co-creation among them to generate economies of scale to avoid duplication of efforts, but also to develop common territorial visions and work together towards achieve them. We work on creating conditions for local initiatives to experiment and develop their own pathways, let's say their own regenerative pathways beyond previous paradigms such as sustainable development or others. I will talk more about that later. And we encourage collective learning through experimentation, feedback, and joint action. And also we strengthen and boost regenerative processes, making them our core partners. If we look at our work on an actor-based theory of change, our main partners that are in our direct sphere of influence are the regenerative processes in the territory. And they are the ones that work directly in the territory, dealing with local communities or with local economics or environmental regeneration. So our role is to support these partners in doing their work in the best way possible for them and to continuously move forward to adopt a regenerative approach. And our sphere of interest that is linked to the end impact is basically focused on the human ecosystem and all sentient, I don't know how to pronounce that, sentient beings, well-being. How do we do this? We have been creating a bioregional regeneration model composed by three main processes. One learning ecosystem, the weaving of the regenerative processes, and a territorial foundation that leads the collaborative governance and finances for the territory. And I'm going to explain each of these now. Well, the learning ecosystem is based on building a bioregional learning center. We are currently in developing some of the components of this center that is responsible for monitoring, systematizing, consolidating, and disseminating the regenerative situation of the territory, but also the learnings and experiences of the regenerative processes. We are now gathering all the geographical information that is available about our geographical scope of work, and building a geographical information system linked to that we want to place this information in a learning platform and link this information with emerging local narratives that could emerge from making the local communities to dialogue with these more scientific information. So these emerging narratives, we hope, that are more close to the regenerative purposes linked to the territory. And we also aim to include in this platform the information linked to a monitoring system on how the regenerative processes in the community are contributing to the regeneration of our territory. We are weaving these regenerative processes around 4 thematic axes: regenerative economics, environmental regeneration, regenerative culture and territorial healing, and regenerative education. So what we have done is mapping the until now 29 processes that identify themselves as being regenerative processes, or that aim to move to become a regenerative process. And we map these processes linked to this thematic axis. And until now, we have 29 mapped processes, but there are more initiatives and processes in the territory that we haven't been able to map them until now, but we have identified them already. Why we are talking about processes and not projects, and I guess this is very important, is because we are identifying processes that have been developed for more than 9 months in the territory, that have like an anchor to the territory by themselves, and that are not dependent economically to the territorial foundation, so that if we don't support them economically, they will continue because there are people, dreams, and hopes that are highly linked to these processes, as you have been able to see, for example, with the Bioparque Moncora or Casa Común, is people that is committed with the processes because they trust these processes deeply, and they are committed with them apart, aside that they may or receive funds from the territorial foundation or from other sources, external sources. So we map these initiatives on the territory, and the idea is that we promote dialogues and connection among these initiatives, so they can start to develop visions and views and dreams around their topics of interest, that they can work together or collaborate or make synergies towards these common topics of interests. I want to develop a bit what this thematic axis means. By regenerative economics, we are understanding food self-sufficiency, and you may read some examples in the screens: economic diversification, like innovation in regenerative enterprises, or ventures, circular economy, new value chains based on local resources, alternative financial systems as the ones that you might be seen in Casa Común, and energy autonomy. By regenerative culture and territorial healing, we are understanding strengthening community governance. So we are promoting citizen participation in territorial decision making and rebuilding the social fabric within the territory. I will deepen on that aspect later. Cultural memory and heritage, like protecting the intangible heritage and fostering narratives that connect community to their territory. Collective well-being and holistic health, and reciprocity and solidarity. We make a lot of emphasis in reciprocity and solidarity with the regenerative processes among them, but also with all the collaborators and sponsors of the Territorial Foundation and of the regenerative processes. So we are starting to conceptualize and to practice and understand what reciprocity means at each level. We're still learning on that. We have some experiences. We are testing them among the territorial processes, how they can collaborate to each other and be and have solidarity and reciprocity among them, but also with the Territorial Foundation, but also with the different sponsors and collaborators of the Territorial Foundation and the territory. By regenerative education, we are understanding nature-based learning. Some education models that integrate natural cycles, have the one you have seen with the Sueños del Bosque School. Regenerative leadership, we are encouraging that the community leaders have a system thinking and understand the complexity of the relations, interactions that take place in the territory among the stakeholders, but also with the natural systems. We promote knowledge dialogues, creating spaces for exchange of experience, ancestral knowledge, local and scientific knowledge. And also, we work in education for climate resilience, raising awareness and providing training on climate adaptation from a territorial perspective. So these are like the themes that we support that our partners developed in regenerative education. And when I say we, is we as a Territorial Foundation. As a Territorial Foundation, we are trying to develop collaborative governance and finance. So we are developing a governance model, territorial governance model, where the different territorial processes can come together and decide by themselves what are the key issues that are needed in the territory, and based on those needs, they can define according to the resources that are available where the money should be invested, or where the resources, not only money, but all the resources that we have available should be invested. So this collaborative governance and finance system is like a management tool that is based on cooperation, transparency, and collective participation. So we have to develop as a foundation approaches that really encourage this participation, the transparency, the building of transparency and trust, the capital mobilization, and how to decentralize decision-making regarding finance and investment in the territory. And yeah. So we are exploring different sources for gathering resources within the territory and outside the territory. So we are creating community funds. We are exploring impact investment. We have not yet developed any initiative specifically linked with it, but we are starting research on regenerative finance that can be linked to the territory. So apart from mapping the territory, the regenerative processes within the territory, we are now starting to map what are the regenerative finance sources that we can apply to the specific characteristics of Barichara. So, for example, we aim to have information that will enable us to understand which are the regenerative processes that are adequate for to be linked to, for example, tokens. What can be, I don't know how to say this in English, but what can be tokenizar, like what can be linked to tokens value, or what can be linked to impact investments, what initiatives may be linked to impact investments, or what initiatives within the territory can be linked to social currencies or to traditional donors or to crowdfunding platforms, or several sources for funding. So to be able to create a sustainable financial ecosystem for the territory. So the way we are working these, and we have been starting to experiment these, was mainly with the 12 initiatives that created the territorial foundation. We prototyped some of these models with these initiatives, and now we are opening the scope to involve these 29 territorial processes to our work. The way we expect to involve these 29 territorial processes this year is to identify or promote the dialogue among groups that may work in a specific geographic area or in a specific theme, and enable them to encounter, know them, meet themselves, understand what each other is doing, and start a dialogue to, as working groups, to develop common visions of what they want to achieve according to their understanding and needs around it, their understanding of the needs of the territory. So the blue dots might be like working groups among specific common interests that that could enable them to work together, dream together, and define what should be the priorities for the territory in a specific topic or in a specific geographic area. These working groups should be linked to the thematic axis that we are supporting, and each of these working groups should have representatives to an advisory council that will bring the priorities and needs of the territory to the territorial foundation, and we will support them to create the narratives that they need to find the needed resources within the territory, but also some resources from outside to support to achieve their purposes. So the idea of this advisory council is that they come together, they should agree on what will be the priorities, needs, and with the available resources, they will suggest where these resources should be invested. And based on this information, the directory of the territorial foundation should make a decision on where to channel the available resources. These are examples of the funds that we are creating and the working groups that are the essence of these funds. Like in the Regenerative Education Fund nowadays, we have this initiative that is called Regenerative Learning Hub, a collaborative path for transformation that is being linking by Bioparque Móncora, Colegio Sueños del Bosque, Reserva Origen del Agua, Colegio Paramito, and Asociación Aquileo Parra. And these are dynamic working groups. They are not static. They are people that can come in or that can go out of the group. And the purpose of these groups is that they will identify needs and common purposes, create a common narrative that we can support, and collaboratively with them, we can search for the resources needed to support the achievement of their purposes. Nowadays, we have been experimented with the Regenerative Education Fund and also with the Environmental Regeneration Fund that is in process of building with a couple of initiatives. That one is called Voices of Water, Lasting Solutions for Water in Barichara, that is linking several initiatives that are linked with water solutions for Barichara, and also Raizagua Community Water Governance that is focused on a geographical area in the Cristalina microbasin, linking an association of women, of coffee growing women, Guayacanal Foundation, that is an ecological and a ecological restoration foundation specialized on that topic, and the Acueductos Comunitarios of that specific area. So and also there's like different initiatives are coming together, having these dialogues, building these narratives, and experimenting with the support of the Territorial Foundation on how to get the funds. And the idea is that we, as a foundation with them, we work in finding the resources in a collaborative manner. It's not just that the foundation do this work for them, but in a collaborative manner, we work together and we use the resources of the foundation to support these purposes. I don't know if we still have some time, Joe, to touch a bit on our cross-cutting approaches, meaning by that the bioregional approach and the regenerative approach and how we are understanding that.
Yeah, please share this because most people have never seen it in practice.
No, I didn't hear.
Oh, did
No,
you?
no. But he said yes, share it.
Okay, thank you. So, as a territorial foundation, we adopted a bioregional approach. So we are committed in promoting that the community adopt also a bioregion, that the regenerative processes also adopt a bioregional approach, and that the community start to understand this concept in their relation with with the territory. So this bioregional approach understands the territory as a living and interconnected system. We work in the interconnections and interdependencies between ecosystems, communities, and human activities. And we use ecological boundaries more than political administrative boundaries. And we promote the understanding and the link between biological and sociocultural interactions and characteristics. So we're weaving the land lots or plots in Barichara to create ecological connections, to weave a bioregion that has a holistic approach and contribute based on that on a planetary process. We are starting on this weaving and this understanding and promoting this in the territory, this approach. So that's why we are connecting not only the landlots, but also the initiatives that might work sometimes in small landscapes or in micro basins, and start understanding how we can build these ecological connections in the territory. We have subdivided our bioregion in 3 levels. One short term, that is by Barichara and nearby towns. Medium term is the Plateau Villanueva Barichara, that I guess will be our guiding bioregion for the next 10 to 15 years. And we have a long-term view that is like an area that is created by the Chicamocha, Suarez, and Fonce River canyons. This could be an area about of 100,000 hectares that we expect that in the long term is being restored and managed in a regenerative manner, so we can create an autonomous climate for our territory. The word in Spanish is autogénico. I don't know if in English makes sense, autogenic, something like that. But it's like a climate that is self-regulated, despite like the imbalances of the worldwide climates. So we expect that it will be the long-term, meaning by that, I don't know, 20 to 100 years, maybe. We also adopted the regenerative approach, and you have some definitions on what this means. And we feel ourselves highly identified with this definition. What we are understanding of by a regenerative approach is to contribute to the capacity of the living systems to build self-determining, meaning by that they can be sustain, reproduce, adapt, and evolve in constant interaction with the environment, and that they can maintain their structure, balance, and functionality a long time. We are moving from a degenerative and system and approach to a regenerative one. Unfortunately, this is a graphic that I couldn't translate, but what this is showing is how our civilization have been in their conventional practices moving in a degenerative way of living, from a degenerative way of living in trying to improve, like the greenwashing system, to the sustainability understanding that is on the left side of the screen with yellow and red colors. And nowadays is moving to a more restorative and reconciliation approach to a regenerative approach. So this is the pathway that we're trying to support in our territories, how we can move to from conventional practices to regenerative ones. So this is all that I have to share. Maybe we can have some time for questions, complaints.
One thing I just want to quickly add, thank you, Natalia, is that all of this is, like she said, a laboratory. So we're not doing this academically, we're learning in practice. So if you have any questions for Natalia, or also for Tanya and Sassy, or myself about the work we've done with the Territory Foundation, if you want to hear different perspectives, many of you have heard me talk about this before, but if you want to hear other perspectives, or if you wanted to ask Melissa to speak about how we're setting up an administrative system, no sé si puedes hablar en inglés o no, pero está bien que hablas francesa y inglés es cierto. But if you'd like to hear more about any of this in detail, this is a good time to ask questions. Grace, and then I'll need to repeat it.
The administrative system offers everything. Yes.
Okay. Okay, Natalia, there's a lot of interest in how we're setting up the administrative, operational, and monitoring systems. And I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about that.
Yeah. Administratively, we have to respond to all the legal national requirements that are a lot. So we are creating a team with an accountant, an administrator that I guess is on the room. I don't know if Melissa managed to go to reach the room.
She's here.
And we have a board of directors with 6 people, but 2 of them are specialized in financial issues and also administration issues for nonprofit organizations in Colombia. Nonprofit organizations in Colombia are highly regulated, and it's a challenge to meet all the government requirements. So we have one legal side of the coin. The other side of the coin is more how we are building regenerative finance and how we are starting to understand and open our scope of not being dependent on traditional sponsors, and how we linked ourselves with let me find the word in English. finance like a progressive philanthropy outside, external progressive philanthropy. Also, as I showed in a slide, how we start to understand what are the local resources that we can count on, meaning by that not only what's the money available within the territory, the knowledge, the capacities, what are our own resources, and based on that, how we can link those resources and improve them and strengthen them by linking them with other type of resources, like the ones I showed, like what can be tokenized, or impact investments, or maybe, like, for example, thinking on the Bioparque Moncora, how we can create like permanent individual donors for the Bioparque Moncora. So how we can develop like different sources to support the different types of regenerative process according to their own nature. We are also develop relationships and being part of a national regenerative fund that is called the Northern Indian Fund. And this is a fund that we are creating together with other territorial foundations in the country. And next week, we are going to meet the representatives of territorial foundations in Peru to start exploring if the fund can be broadened also to other Northern Indian countries. The idea of why we are doing these connections and creating these funds is that we expect to support, not as a territorial foundation, but then this fund expects to support the activation of different bioregions nationally that can learn and support each other, and that is a bit of the same that what Joe is doing internationally, that is activating different bioregions international, but we are doing that at the national level. And we expect to link other Ecuador and Peru, and maybe, Ecuador and Peru. This fund expects to also improve the type and the quality and the amount of resources that are being challenged to the territories, because we can share with the other territories experiences, resources, knowledge. Like, other territories don't need to duplicate Casa Común. Maybe Casa Común can cooperate with other territories and do the transformation of products for the territory. So we can have like the communist coin can be shared with other territories also. So what we want to do is to reply at the national level the same things that we're learning locally. So we're building the administrative systems to be able to fulfill these purposes and to be able to fulfill the legal aspects, the legal requirements of the national government. Regarding the monitoring system, what we are starting to do, and maybe I can show you, sorry, one sec, I will share it. What we expect to do is to build regenerative monitoring system for the territory. So a system that enables us to understand how we are moving as a territory towards regeneration in these four thematic axes. So what we expect is to be able to create a system that will give us a better understanding on how we are moving in the variables of each thematic axis. The first conceptualization of these variables is the ones I shared with you, but we don't expect these to be fixed variables. It's just our starting point from our understanding of what's going on in the territory. So they might be changed a long time according to what is really happening in the territory. What we expect is to make an adaptation of the core returns framework that is being used by Commonland, a Dutch organization that is promoting landscape restoration worldwide, to be adapted as a monitoring system for this territory. And we're gonna starting piloting this I guess in the second semester of this year. If it works well, what we expect is to scale that up to the other for the other territories where territorial foundations are present in Colombia.
Natalia, si puedo sumar más un momento.
Yeah.
Part of the way we're designing the Northern Andes Fund is that you can see there are really wonderful leaders in Barichara, people like Natalia. So we have really beautiful leaders here, but in the other territories, there are amazing leaders as well. But what we have in Barichara, among the territorial foundations, is from the very beginning, we were the only territorial foundation that was specifically bioregional and regenerative. So that means we had to teach the other territories, what is regenerative? What is a bioregion? And so we use the framework that we're developing to teach that. And then we put that into the Northern Andes Fund. So that means the 8 territories are now developing the same 4 thematic areas and similar ways of measuring, not identical, but similar. For example, you study water management around a geographic area for a watershed, and then you look at social capacities of self-regulation, and you look at monitoring of improvements of the watershed, and those are similar. So as one territory is doing this work, they can very easily share what they're learning with another. And so that was happening from the very beginning. As we were forming our territorial foundation, we took 3 years. For 3 years, we talked about our territorial foundation before we legally constituted. And then we legally constituted in March of last year. But during that time, we were already collaborating with all of the other territories. So the frameworks we were developing here, they're developing a sister territorial framework for their bioregions in the other territories.
What are those territories?
There are multiple of them, but I'll give a few examples. There's a group in Putumayo, which is a headwater community of the Amazon.
Are they all in Colombia or different?
They're all in Colombia. There are territorial foundations in other places, but these are all within the legal jurisdiction of Colombia, so they can collaborate around accountability, legal requirements, and so on, which is very important. And so you have Putumayo, Florencia, Medellin, Cali. You've got the groups that are in Paisano and in the Savannah de Bogota. There are groups in multiple areas. I've only named a few. Monte de Maria, which is another tropical dry forest. And so basically what is happening is the diversity of places in Colombia are collaborating around 2 kinds of shared framework. The framework of a territorial foundation and the framework of bioregional regeneration. And when you put them together, you've invented something new. So if you've seen other community foundations around the world, most of them are not very innovative. Basically what they are is a group of rich people get together. They create what's called a donor advised funds, and then those rich people decide where all the money goes. And it's like so far from innovative, it's just a plutocracy of another form. It's rich people deciding how to collaborate to donate their money to what rich people want. which is not what community foundations are supposed to be about. But because so many community foundations are constrained by the consciousness of their donors, it's garbage in, garbage out. But if you create a framework of territorial governance based on bioregional regeneration and multi-stakeholder networks with these thematic areas, it enables something fundamentally different to emerge. And so that's why, as we're doing this work of setting up monitoring systems and evaluation systems, part of that is to just show, like, we can see that it works, but to show someone that it works, you need rigorous empirical measurement for verification. And so our monitoring systems will be connected to blockchain technologies and other kinds of 21st century technologies through the capacity to say the stories we're telling are true and verifiable, which allows people who want to put money into real regeneration to be able to trust that it's happening. And if they put that money into Barichara, they're immediately helping 7 other territories to have the same verification, because we're building the monitoring systems collaboratively through the Northern Andes Regeneration Program.
Where are you with that monitoring system process?
Melissa, ¿cómo estamos? Where we are, honestly, is we are building as we go. And we have very good demonstration of what we've done so far. And what we need to do next, the next level up, is to show that as we partner between territories, that this is a replicable model, which is that local people can create their own governing frameworks and work collaboratively with the other territories. So I would say we have about 5 years of demonstration of it working at various levels in Barichara, and other places like Paisano, which is a very advanced territorial foundation in Bogota, has been demonstrating a lot of social exchanges. They've really focused a lot more on what I would call cultural regeneration. And they are learning to recognize that that's what they were doing as they're learning what regeneration means. And they're documenting that very well as multi-capital flows and multi-stakeholder networks doing community philanthropy. But to move to the level of restoring the Bogota River, you can, those of you who have been to Bogota, that clenching is right, because that's a really big challenge. But what I would say is, if the frameworks and the monitoring frameworks, especially, and the administrative frameworks are compatible with each other, they don't need to be the same, they just need interoperability. Then they can communicate with each other and share stories. And I would say we are building that. We're about 1 year into building that right now.
I have a few questions, but I'll just stick to
For Natalia, or for me, just to be sure that she hears it.
okay.
Natalia, ¿se escuchas bien?
Yeah.
No?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Yeah, I'm wondering how you support the people who are part of the core team. Like, who do you pay people that are holding these processes, or how are they supported to do that work?
Yeah, we have a core team that is now being paid in a symbolic manner, meaning by that it's not what they could earn in other jobs. So part of their work is given voluntarily to the territory, and part of their work is paid. But what we expect is to be able to pay them in a meaningful manner, unless they like what we want to do is that the people that has gifts in Barichara and knowledge that can be in service for the territory can be placed in the territory in a good, can be put in service for the territory, paid in a good way. What I mean by that is that, like, for example, it's based on what each person needs more than in the experience. Like, if I work in another organization or another, if I keep myself being an international consultant as it used to be, I will learn like I don't know, 15 times more than what I earn here for doing my work. But the main question below that is, what do I need? What do I really need to be, to have well-being? And sometimes it's not just money. Sometimes it's networks, relationships, the possibility to experiment, and other inspiring things that are not paid in currency. So we are giving some support money for people that is working in the territorial foundations since the last semester. But the other years we were working voluntarily completely.
Yo puedo sumar algo.
Yeah.
Right now, Penny and I are paying Tanya and Ceci to help organize and facilitate this. But the way that we raise money for the design school is by doing this kind of work, including teaching what we do in Barichara to other places around the world. So even though the money is not coming from the Territorial Foundation, it's coming from the design school, and it's coming through Possible Planet with our fiscal sponsor. Right now, it's coming from my personal bank account. I'm going to request a reimbursement, but international financial flows in Colombia is complicated. But just to say that we are very creative at creating regenerative financial flow. And regenerative financial flow includes looking for syntropy, looking for active synergistic relationships. And so, for example, when Penny and I asked Tanya and Ceci if we could pay them to help organize this event, they used the opportunity to hire Marty and Chris to document some of what is happening, which will tell stories that promote Bioparque Monclova and Casa Común. And so we're getting a dual investment in the same resource. And similarly, in aggregating different kinds of cultural activities that you could do while you're here and creating a database of that information, we're helping to organize for the education ecosystem that's happening there. And so we find multiple ways to bring financial resources to support people, and the people are weaving multiple flows simultaneously. And because all of us have learned how to do this, we're able to support our core team better with time. So in the beginning, no one was supported. I was being paid on Patreon by people around the world to give all the money that I brought into the community. And I still receive zero money from anything that I bring to Barichara. I don't need it. I'm funded in another way. But in different moments, we mobilize the resources wherever we can. We have to be very scrappy and creative. So sometimes we're able to find money for syntropic agroforestry, and Tanya and Ceci are supported to do that. Other times we get a grant from the Novo Foundation. We're doing development work with the foundation, and we can pay Ceci to do communications work. And sometimes we're doing an event for the Design School for Regenerating Earth, and we pay someone to organize an event. We just take the money from whatever is in our networks, and we move it wherever it needs to go through trust-based philanthropy. And we're very good at being creative. And we're getting better at it all the time. But you see that this is not about having security. It's not about having a job. This is about deep spiritual devotion to the work and being a community. And as a community, we take care of each other.
These are the really valuable stories because they're the different way of doing things.
Yeah. Are there any other questions, Arthur? For Natalia?
Yes.
You want to come over?
Natalia, mucho gusto. Arthur Getz, Escudero. I'm fascinated by the actor-led theory of change that you shared with us. The image of the shared areas of influence, the areas of control, and the areas of yeah, a couple back. This is good. The challenge I have in my own mind in this sphere of influence is how much connective tissue, how much sympathy or appetite for understanding parallel processes is there within this coherence around bioregions and territorial governance. Two forks of meaning here. One is that there are global processes which are birthing a territorial governance framework through stakeholder-led processes to converse and refine. How do we get towards a more refined understanding of what the principles are that guide territorial development? And that is involving very unusual and unlikely actors, multilateral development banks, member states in the UN system, UN agencies, grassroots organizations. So I'm wondering, is there in the mapping that you're doing an appetite or an interest or a strategy for understanding these parallel processes that are getting towards the same direction, but perhaps are taking different routes? The other branch of my question is, in a parallel sense, where's the San Gil or Bucaramanga or Villanueva interests at this political administrative level for this bioregional thinking? What is the mapping and the navigation towards those parallel processes so that we don't eventually have a collision or a missing of interests? And the whole motive I have for lodging that question is, how do we get to the reality check of the scale and the scope of the changes ahead? Do we operate completely in parallel as an oasis, linking fruits on a vine in a bioregional sense? Or do we understand collapse and resilience in another way that understands how, in parallel, the breaking down of existing structures of governance, looking for other directions, also find ways to share knowledge and resources? That's the question. It's very general. I apologize.
I am not so sure if I understood the question because it was cut a bit, but and you were speaking Spanish. Can you rephrase that in Spanish?
Ah, okay.
Intentaré hacerlo, pero para mí una de las preguntas más profundas es cómo vamos a entender los procesos paralelos en descubrir otras formas de gobernanza, por ejemplo, al nivel territorial, que hay otros procesos en camino que han desarrollado a través de procesos participativos. ¿Cuáles son las metas, los principios que van a dirigir ese proceso? Y mientras tanto, me preocupa que en esas teorías de los actor-led mapeos, que vamos a perder la oportunidad de entender esas esferas de influencia que tenemos en común con aquellos grupos y los intereses que tienen. Puede ser que ellos tienen otros intereses también que no son de acuerdo, pero a base tenemos esa oportunidad de hacer una navegación en común o por ejemplo, un reparte de informes de esos puntos de vista. Por otro proceso, en paralelo, me pregunto cuáles son los puentes o los esfuerzos hasta las estructuras administrativas y políticas que existen ya al nivel municipal o regional, que también tienen en mente esos procesos que vinculan a la naturaleza, cities with nature, regions with nature, los procesos que han tras décadas ya están incluidos en procesos globales. ¿Cómo vamos a aprovechar de esas brechas, esas oportunidades de tener más palanca con esos procesos también? ¿O vamos a seguir pensando que estamos en un mundo en paralelo, como en una oasis de desarrollo solamente entre los grupos de bioregionalidad, ¿no? Esa es mi pregunta. Incluye, aunque no lo dije en inglés, ¿cuáles son los procesos que están siguiendo los grupos de indígenas que tienen sus propias gobernancias, pero son estructuras distintas que estos? Entonces, ¿cómo hacemos esa clase de diplomacia y entendimiento en común? ¿Listo?
I can't let me think, but my first feeling towards what you are saying is that I guess there's a big challenge in our world for our communities to be able to live according to their own beliefs, whatever they are. So within Barichara, we don't have an homogeneous community, despite one can think there's an homogeneous community, or see from the outside that we are homogeneous. We are not an homogeneous community. There's very diverse people living in Barichara with diverse interests, with diverse cultures from origin, diverse culture, and also habits, beliefs. So my first thinking is that I guess there's a big challenge on how to create spaces for dialogue in which each group with a particular set of beliefs has a space for dialogue, for participate, and for committing themselves towards regeneration from their own set of beliefs, values, and habits. We adopted the regenerative approach because what we expect is that we can align the different groups around this approach as a set of shared values. We are far from being there, but yeah, we are far from being there because we are a big community. So we have been working together and enlarging our set of partners, our group of partners. But I think we as humanity, we are facing a challenge of, one, how to understand our current role regarding to what we're facing as humanity. Second, to vindicate our own mechanisms for governance, for interacting and for working in a territory. And also on how to make linkages to broader levels. So for instance, we locally, we have very approachable and sometimes corrupt governments. So what we are doing now is, like one of the examples I mentioned in the presentation is Voces de Agua. It's how they can find voices of water. This is a group of 27 that identify themselves as doing something towards water. From these groups, there was a political process to influence the local government. And so we were supporting this group to come together and to interact with the local government and the national government for solutions for water locally. From that, what emerged was the technical table. In English could be something like technical tables of water, and each technical table is leading with one of the aspects of the problematic of water in Barichara. And these technical tables are working with the local council to influence the local policies. What I want to show with this example is that what we want to support is that their communities have an active role in defining what happens in their own territories, active role and commitment. So if we can do this with the support of our local governments, it's fantastic. If we can't, we're gonna keep doing it. We have a territorial nowadays there's been a process of I don't know how to say this in English, esquema de ordenamiento territorial, Joe. It's like the territorial planning scheme that is the responsibility of the local government. What we are trying to do is to influence how the local government approach this process of updating this territorial planning, adopting regenerative principles for territorial planning. What we can do most is to influence the local government, but because there's a legal obligation that they have to ask the community how to approach and how to do this territorial planning. So we're not so sure if they will adopt the approach, but what we are sure is that we can mobilize the local communities and inform them on how to influence this process of territorial planning. So we have as communities, we have to look what are our best strategies to link or to influence or confront the mainstream governance systems that are in place. That's why we feel it's very important not only to gather the community, articulate the processes within a community, but also linked up with other bioregions at a national level and at international level, because that will be the only way that we can build to resist to governance, to the mainstream governance systems that are being imposed in our world. And I mean, resist, I'm saying resist because I don't think that we have the power to oppose or change those systems by confronting them, but we can change those systems, acknowledging that our best power is the power of choosing, the power of deciding the way we want to live, and the power to decide how we get out from the current system and from the current and mainstream financial systems, working systems, political systems. So my dream is that if we are not able to change the current governance systems, we will create parallel governance systems as communities. And if we grow as such, we will start to ignore them because they will be the minority.
Yo quiero agregar una cosa y creo que necesitamos terminar pronto. Bueno, I just wanted to share that part of what Natalia is talking about is what I might put in a cybernetics or semiotics language as how does information create feedbacks. And when we have information that is based on what is actually happening in the community, like for example, she was saying that the audio cut out, but she found through a social mapping process that there are about 30 local groups working on water within 3 of our local watersheds. So there's more than that, but in 3 of the watersheds, there are about 30 groups that are very active. For those 30 groups have about 50 stories, which means they have all these different, we call it chisme, rumors, gossip, just like people are bullshitting whatever they want to say. And where do you find the evidence to figure out what's real? Right now, you can't. So for us to create monitoring systems based on geospatial data and information gathered by the social actors that are the people on the ground, then they can tell stories based on what is actually happening, and they can cross-verify with each other. And then they can dispel, they can push away the false information that allows people to keep them divided. And then they can unify around what actually works. And so this connection between monitoring systems and data systems and human relationships and dialogue builds this alternative political pathway. And this political pathway is built around stories that are grounded in what is really happening. And so this is extremely important because this kind of process cannot happen from the outside. Only local people can do this in any local place, which is why we need parallel processes in bioregions around the world to be doing this. Yeah, this is what she was saying about the Bioregional Learning Center. So when Natalia heard me talk about bioregional learning centers, with her previous work at IUCN and other biodiversity conservation organizations, she had seen that local community economic development is based on gathering data with local people telling stories about what they know in their own communities. And she had been doing this work for years. So immediately Natalia translated Bioregional Learning Center into Geospatial Data Commons. Right? Geospatial data commons as a foundation for a knowledge commons for your bioregion. And you start to see that that is connected to the kinds of strategies she just gave more detail about. That there are territorial planning commissions that require input from communities. But if the communities bring garbage to those planning processes, you're not going to get good outcomes, even if you have really good participation.
Joe, how far are you along with this GIS system?
We have failed to receive adequate funding every time we've requested it, but this time with funding that we know is coming, we're setting part of it aside to build some of this system. And one of the people who's not with us today is Sergio Barrero, who is an environmental engineer working with geographic information systems. And some of the maps Natalia was showing you, he has been helping to create with the local actors. And so we've been prototyping it in some of the local watersheds, but just like for those who've heard about what's happening in the greater Takaranto bioregion with the geoportal that they're creating, this geo AI, this way of mapping large-scale landscape systems with shared data sets, we're trying to do the same thing locally. And so we found that with about $100,000, we could build the whole system in Barichara. In the greater Takaranto, it's $12 million. It's a much larger system.
Do you
But-
have it specs out already? What you do?
Yeah, we designed it last year. We've received tiny bits of funding to prototype some of it, because the key processes are actually participatory knowledge creation together with geospatial data. So you go to ArcGIS or some similar kind of tool set, and there's lots of data, but you need actual artists, scientists, the kind of people that can build locally useful data. To say, okay, I can do GIS, but who do I build it with? Oh, I build it with the local actors. They tell me the questions that need to be answered, and I, as a GIS person, will build the maps that they need. And then they will tell the stories with that data. So you have to have these participatory governing processes. And that has been prototyped through territorial dialogues throughout the last 18 months, and some of the mapping work in the last 8 or 10 months with some of the funding we've got through the territorial. So it's a work in progress, and we're hoping to take it to another level in the next 6 months.
We may have some of this built already, just so you know.
And Frank Sanborn has the whole thing built too.
Yeah, but he has it built in a different context. So what we need is this participatory process to create local governance in our
But he has
watershed.
the hardware. You
Yeah.
can just get the hardware from him and use it in your system.
But we have to pay the people to go out and facilitate the community
Yeah.
processes
Right.
to engage the inquiry and gather the data. That's the part that we actually have all the rest.
It was 100,000.
Yeah, for about a year of work, and we would have community level governance and through watersheds would be structured well enough to continue. Which is then part of, we have 18 or 16 Veredas, these rural areas, we prototyped in 3 of them. So then replicating in the other 13 in the following year. So the idea is to create watershed governance models for the territory at the scale of our local towns and the watersheds around them. So Villanueva, Barichara, Cabrera, Melon, etc. at this sort of scale. So I think that we need to let Natalia go because she's been sitting on her screen for a minute. We will continue this conversation, and we need to move over to having lunch. But I should say, muchísimas gracias, Natalia, para compartir.
Bye bye, thank you.
Bueno, estamos en contacto, nos vemos pronto.
Vale, vale.
Gracias por
Que les
todo.
vaya bien. Chao, chao.